focusing on the best graphic settings for Modern Warfare 2 as well as Warzone 2. And although most of the stuff will apply to PC players, there will be some console things that overlap because you are kind of limited on a console in terms of what you can change. So on the first page, I play full screen exclusive. I have a gaming PC with a 3080, I'm 240 hertz, even though I don't really get that. Display resolution 1440, dynamic resolution off, aspect ratio set to default. If you want like a super widescreen, you could definitely do that, but then you're going to end up with black bars. VSync off, VSync and menus off, and then custom frame rate. Generally leave this at whatever you really want, whatever the frames you're getting. I normally lower them so I don't have a huge range of frames. 150 up to about 200. I lower that so I don't get these huge swings in frame rate. So that's going to really depend on your individual system. I don't have an HDR monitor, so I have that off. One of the main things I will focus on that is an immediate difference regardless of what platform you're on is to go to the interface section of the settings. And the reason for that is because there is a huge setting that is very important. And a lot of times people say, well, how does your game look so good? Part of that is the saturation and the color effect where it's not overdone. And that is by utilizing this specific setup here with color filter 2, color filter target, both the world and the interface, and these set up to 100. There is a drastic difference when you lower these and they are not on, that you're going to get a much more dull game. If you prefer the dull game that Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 2019 tend to be, just leave it default, that's fine. But if you prefer to your game to have a little bit more life, you can actually swap that out. And then if you have a specific color blindedness or preference, you can go ahead and adjust that based off your preferences and then change those individual colors. Maybe if red doesn't pop out to you as much as pink, you can go through that. But this top portion is like the secret sauce in terms of to make your game visually look better. The other part is these vertical heads-up display as well as the horizontal heads-up display. On PC, this is how it pops up. On console, it pops up as safe area. And ideally, you want to go ahead and kind of narrow this down a little bit because what this is going to do is move your minimap from the edge, touching the edge of your screen. It'll move it a little bit closer so your eyes don't have to move as far. Same thing with your ammo, the player count, and all the different things that pop up on screen, they get a little bit closer. The downside is if you lower this too much, when a precision airstrike or a cluster comes up, it will be at the center of your screen. So you can kind of play with that until it kind of moves a little bit out of the way so it's not blocking your crosshair. So those are probably the two most important that apply to every platform. Previously, we had to have a lot of settings higher than they needed to, so you'd lose some frames. So I dropped a lot of those settings, which still makes the game look great, where you don't have to have certain settings on to make your gun look more reflective. Whereas in the beginning, you had to have a specific, or else your gold would look like mustard, and you didn't really want that. So I went through and I looked at gold, platinum, polyatomic, and Orion and kind of see how they look in game with these exact settings, so you can kind of see that in the background. And I wanted to make sure I showed that off. That's how it will look with these settings that I have in game. The global quality, we're gonna have it custom since we're gonna manage everything. 1440p for my setup. If you're at 1080, leave it at 1080. 4K. Fidelity, FX. I personally like 70. Some people prefer even more sharpness. I think 100 is just way too sharp. And I felt like 70 is the sweet spot. Anti-aliasing, we're using the Filmic. Anti-aliasing quality is normal. Video memory scale, I have it set to 80. And then the texture resolution, normal. Texture filter, anisotropic, normal. And here's one you could drop down if you don't want the extra detail. I like it looking clean. Like I want it to look like it's not a PS2 or PS3 game that people sometimes meme on COD about. I like the game to look good. The thing where you can also adjust it is this clutter draw distance. And I went and tested the difference, and it felt like if you put it to short, things start to render at about 150 meters. These little patches of grass that'll pop up on the screen, you have that around 150 meters. If you put this too long, it'll bump that out to about 200 meters. That's just a rough estimate, so you get an extra 50 meters. On the ground, you're probably gonna not notice this. It's more when you're diving in where you'll see the pop, 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 you know, where those things are literally rendering up and they didn't exist before, and then all of a sudden they pop up on the screen. Not necessarily a big deal. If you want to go ahead and save a little bit, you can go short. since once you're on the ground, you're not really going to be dealing with that in the same way. Particle quality, low. Particle quality level, very low. Bullet impact, I have them on. Some people turn those off, but I prefer them to be on so I can actually see where my bullet goes. If I do a recoil pattern, those types of things. Persistent damage layers, we have that one off. We got shader quality low, tessellation near, terrain memory max, on-demand texture streaming off, streaming quality low, volumetric quality low, deferred physics quality off, water caustics off. So we're turning a lot of these things off. And as you saw in the B-roll there early on with the guns, the game still looks pretty good. We got shadow map resolution very low, screen space reflections off, spot shadow quality low, spot cache low, particle lighting low, and then ambient occlusion off. Green space reflections off, static reflection quality low, weather grid volumes off. Post processing I have on plus boost. You could have on as well, that helps. And then we got the depth of field off, world and weapon motion blurs off, and the film grain set to completely off. Personally, I play at 107 FOV. I know the trend is to max that out. It does make things a little bit less visible, so it is really a preference there. Most of the pro players in the CDL, at least for rank, they're playing anywhere between 90 to 105. So that's kind of really a preference thing. Sometimes targets get a little bit harder. As you lower your FOV, the targets get larger, so you're a little bit easier to hit shots, but that's a preference thing. Affected is still the way to go. Wide 90, I have it maxed out, even though we don't really have a third-person mode in Warzone. Vehicle, wide, and then first, all these camera shake stuff is pretty much off. Of game perspective, even though there's a bug that if somebody gets in a vehicle, it will swap that perspective. Try it for yourself. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.